So we've got the basics on fungus. We've got how they got out of the water. Now we're going to go into how do they get their food. And we touched a little bit on that in the last lecture. That whole idea of phagotrophy versus osmotrophy. Osmotrophy is going to occur when you're going to move nutrients directly across the membrane. So here's an image of a membrane. You get nutrients from one side to the other without forming big bubbles around them. This is called absorptive nutrition. So what a fungus is going to do is it's going to secrete enzymes. What do enzymes do? Do you guys remember enzymes? Right, they speed up reactions. That's the best word, is catalyze. They catalyze reactions. They make them go faster than they otherwise would. So here you got this fungus that's growing, and it's going to secrete enzymes all around it. It lets enzymes out into the environment. Those enzymes break down material around the fungus so that material can be easily diffused across the membrane into the fungus. So that's absorptive nutrition. Fungus do this, but so do you. This occurs in your small intestine. Yeah, small intestine. You've got these lots of little things, twists and turns with so super quick thing about the way your body works. You guys know what your small intestine is, right? It's sort of this thing that loops back and forth in your gut. It's because it goes back and forth, it loops in on itself. When you see loops and twists and turns in biology, what do you think? Surface area. The more surface area you have, you're touching the food, the more nutrients you can absorb out of it. In your intestines that loop and twist and turn, you've got these little hair-like projections called villi. And on those villi, you've got more twists and turns, microvilli, all meant to increase as much surface area as possible to touch those nutrients and absorb them across the membrane. So that's the way your body works. A fungus is going to work in the same way. It's going to have long, thin projections that twist and turn. So now that we've gotten rid of the cell, now that we have a cell wall, we don't need phagotrophy anymore. We can use osmotrophy. The body of the fungus is functionally adapted to osmotrophy and reproduction. That is, the body of the fungus, called the mycelium, is going to have lots and lots of twists and turns. It's sort of like a ball of string, if you will. Very, very thin, whole bunch of twists and turns. It's made up of what's called hyphae. So this is like the long components of the fungus. Long filamentous strands. They grow extraordinarily quickly. You'll notice that, you got a long strand. Generally, there are going to be open spaces between the cells to allow easy transport. Any questions so far? Hyphae come together to form what's called the mycelium. If you were to ever take a bunch of dirt and scoop it up, you're going to notice lots and lots of sort of almost looks like cobwebs inside or tendrils. This is all fungus. This is the mycelium, or the body of the fungus. Most fungus exists either in moist soil or in water. Lots of twists and turns, lots of surface area. Because of the way fungus are adapted, they can grow to extraordinary lengths and widths. The largest organism on Earth takes up 2,200 acres in Oregon. It's a fungus. It lives entirely underground. It sounds like Oregon, right? Fungus. It's cool. It's moist. The hyphae can be considered septae or aseptae. What it means to be septae is that there are cell walls between the cells. Aseptae is their cell walls break down. So that essentially the fungus is one giant cell with a whole bunch of nuclei. So you got septae, which is separated, aseptae, which is no cell walls. When you are aseptae, not separated, you end up having many, many nuclei throughout the fungus. And that has to make sense because if you have a 2,200 acre organism, basically one big cell, you need to be able to get proteins from one place to the other. The easiest way to do that is to have many, many manufacturing plants throughout the whole body. So by being aseptate and multinucleated, many nuclei, you can then have lots of protein being created throughout the organism, not just in one area. Questions or concerns? Septae, separated, aseptae, not separated. No cell walls. So these hyphae extend out in all directions. In fact, if you were to take a fungal spore and put it into a liquid, it will grow into a big ball of hyphae. You've probably seen it, and it's disgusting. Anybody, you guys have seen like something grow in a liquid, right? Like, yeah, okay, good. If you've seen it grow in a liquid, it looks like a little fuzzy ball in the liquid. That fuzzy ball is the mycelium of a fungus touching as much of that liquid as it can, especially if that liquid had any sugar in it. It will grow very, very quickly. These long hyphae, long thin hyphae, maximize surface area. So these fungi, they are osmotrophic. They feed directly by taking nutrients across their cell wall. This is Cordyopsis, a fungus that's growing out of an ant. This is what you might have heard of a brain-eating fungus before. You guys know what I'm talking about? Basically, what it does is it infects an ant. The ant will then go crazy, and instead of hanging out near the hive, it actually will crawl up a tree over top of the ant colony, bite down on it, goes up really high, bites down on the leaf, and dies. And where it died and where it begins to sit, it grows this long strand in order to produce spores. And those spores will then rain down on top of the colony, on top of the ant farm. The ant hill. And thus, more ants get infected and the fungus spreads. Questions on osmotrophy? You guys feeling okay with it? The idea of pulling nutrients across the membrane? Okay. The more surface area you have, the more osmotrophy you can occur. The more osmotrophy occurs, the more nutrients you get. The more nutrients you get, the faster you grow. Just that easy. There's no real constraints on how big a fungus can grow. It grows until it runs out of nutrients. So long, thin hyphae that twist and turn are going to touch more surface. The more surface they touch, the more enzymes they release. The more enzymes they release, the more nutrients they dissolve. The more nutrients they dissolve, the more they can take in. The more they take in, the faster they grow. It's a cycle that goes on and on and on and on. Thus, the hyphae get longer, they touch more. When in a nutrient-rich environment, these hyphae grow extraordinarily quickly. You've seen this happen with bread, probably at your house. You've seen it happen with oranges. Fungus are fast. How fast? Optimally, under the best possible conditions. They have nutrients, they have moisture, they have a substrate. They can grow at a rate of 1 kilometer per day. That's 2.5 feet per minute. That's fast, guys. That's 2.5 feet per minute. That's more than some people move. Especially if they're sitting in the same room for 3 hours. So when you think about I don't know, like 2.5 feet a minute. Has anybody ever told you the cheese is still fine? Just cut the bad part off. Yeah, that's okay. Look, I grew up in an immigrant household, so it was you protect all the food forever. If the cheese had like a little bit of mold on it or a little bit of fungus, my mom's like, I just cut that part off. Eat the rest of it. Now I know that if I see something there and this grows at 2.5 feet a minute, it's probably through the whole thing. I'm just making myself feel better. So hyphae grow themselves by using osmosis to their advantage and what's called cytoplasmic streaming. Basically, you pull in water. As you pull water into the cell, what increases? Water's coming in, so what in the cell will increase? Think about putting water into a water balloon. Yes, the pressure. The pressure increases a lot. It's called the turgor pressure. So that water pressure increases. You've got, things pushing on all sides. Then what will happen is the cytoplasm is going to move new cell wall components, chitin, out to the edge so that you're constantly growing in one direction. You're constantly building this end. It's almost like, think of the cytoplasm dropping off cell wall components up here. So this gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, only on one side. So these hyphae can grow very, very quickly. The organelle that's responsible for this, as you may recall from Bio 101, is the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus' whole job is to package proteins and send them to where they're needed. In this case, it's packaging up cell wall components and then sending it to the cell wall. More than that, the Golgi is also responsible for sending out those enzymes that break down all of the material around the hyphae. So you've got Golgi shipping out enzymes, the material around the hyphae is breaking down. That opens up a space. Okay, so when I moved into my house, the yard was a wreck. Basically, there was the house and then grass that was, 3 feet high. Over time, what I did was, very slowly, I cut down that very tall grass. Every time I cut down the grass, I could extend my my usable property into that area. And then I extended it farther, and then I put up a wall so that where I probably at this point picked up about 40 extra feet of yard from just clearing what's in front. That's what the fungus are doing. They're clearing out the stuff around them, and then they're moving into that spot, growing bigger, and then touching the stuff around. I swear I'm probably taking my neighbor's yard now. But they don't care. Squatters' rights. So the hyphae extend quickly into new food sources, which lets them get even bigger. The bigger the fungus, the faster it grows. So here's that cutting off the bad part idea. This is a piece of cheese. It's got mold. You can't just cut that off and it's gone. The hyphae of the fungus have extended into basically all the cheese at that point. Questions or concerns? Yes.
How is a chitin cell wall different from a cellulose?
Cellulose. So functionally, they're similar, and it's because that similarity is convergent evolution.
Yeah.
Basically, the only difference is which carbohydrates in the wall. That's really it. It's going to be cellulose versus chitin.
But they have there's not some special thing about chitin that makes it able to absorb nutrients?
No, plant cells can do the same thing. They can pull nutrients across.
Oh, right. Like minerals.
Yep.
Okay.
So there we go.